What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, and a couple of other tickers. I'm also going to break down why next week is going to be absolutely massive. Even though the market may start off on a very, very low end, we have major catalysts coming out that could affect if the market bounces or not. And also more pieces of data which are going to be very important. But before I begin the devil's information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you guarantee 20 free stocks. And the offer ends very soon in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. I just wanted to say that right now, when it comes to SPY, we got a bearish divergence that developed on the chart, which led to a little bit of a sell-off. We're actually currently below this trend line of support, which is a sign of weakness. So I am seeing that the 4-hour is showing some signs of contraction, and this does kind of suggest the market may see a little bit of downside as we open next week. But whether the downside is going to be, lasting for the whole week, or if it lasts for just like a couple of days, that's going to depend a lot on many different factors. So let me elaborate. So going into Monday, we just have some bill auctions coming out for next week. On Tuesday, we have more bill auctions and very, very minor data. For Wednesday, we have very, very important data coming out, though. That's when everything ends up shifting. We have CPI and core CPI coming out. That's going to be very important for the markets. It's going to give us a good understanding of how inflation is looking, and we will see how core ends up holding up. Is inflation going to be a lot harder than expected or as expected? We'll just have to wait and see. Last time the inflationary readings came out, everything was close to expectations. So we'll just have to wait and see. And then once all the inflationary data comes out, we have a couple of hours of free time until we get to the Fed. We have the first off the interest rate hike decision coming out from the Fed at 2 p.m. Then we have the projections coming out for the longer term time frames in the very beginning. And then at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Jerome Powell's speech at the FOMC press conference. So that's going to be very important data. We have the FOMC meeting on Wednesday. We have CPI and FOMC on Wednesday. It's pretty insane. For Thursday, then we have initial jobless claims and PPI data. PPI data is going to be very important. PPI is going to give us a good understanding of how wholesale inflation is looking, a leading indicator for CPI. Can't wait to see what that looks like. And then it's going to be followed by Friday when we have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Report. So lots of important data is coming out throughout the week. It's going to start on Wednesday. That's when data becomes very, very serious. Wednesday through Friday. The first few days are going to be kind of light, and that's why I think the market has more room to do different things. The market's very close to becoming a little bit more fearful right now. We're still neutral, so things could shift a bit. Momentum is still greedy, but other things are kind of starting to shift. Now the puts and call option positioning is back to neutral as we're starting to see some more sellers stepping back in and they're doing something very, very different. So that's a big shift that we're starting to see right now. Market volatility is also quite neutral as we're starting to see a bit of a dip in the VIX. So we'll just have to see how things develop from here. But what do I see for the markets? What do I see for SPY? I just wanted to call out that right now for SPY, we're not looking that great. We have this nice bearish divergence that developed in the smaller time frames. Let me just show you that real quick. On the 1 hour time frame, there is this divergence. You guys can see that the MACD was trending downwards, volume is trending downwards, but the price was trending upwards. And that's leading to this rejection right here. In addition to that, when we look at our 4-hour time frame, we're actually below this key support. So I know this has a lot of like trend lines and such, but when you look at this, we have this white trend line acting as our support. That's what SPY has been holding up. And currently, we're actually breaking below it to some extent. So with this bearish divergence, I wouldn't be surprised if SPY dips all the way down to 531.5. If that fails us, 529 is on the table. So there could be a little dip, and the odds do favor the market dipping a bit more as we start early next week. So I think we're going to likely see a little pullback, but there's a big but. It's going to not likely last. I think that there's a good chance it's not going to last forever because with FOMC, as long as we get a decent inflationary reading, Jerome Powell should pump the markets as he typically does. That's very probable. So we could get a bounce thanks to FOMC later. So I think the most likely possibility is we dip a bit and then we try to bounce. But for now, let's not focus on the bounce. Let's just talk about how low we could go. That's going to be a test of 531.5. If we lose that, 529 could be tested, but then we could bounce all over again. But that's what I'm anticipating for early next week. Now, for Nvda, we have the stock split coming up. Before we split, it is possible we actually get a little dip before it tries to bounce again. Remember, we still have many days until the split ends up happening. So if we were to dip just a little dip on Nvidia, you want to see if it loses 1180. We're trying to hold above 1200, which is a good sign, but if we lose 1180, there is a chance we could fill the gap down to the 1160s before we try to bounce. So watch for that very, very carefully. For Tesla, Tesla is going to make a massive move next week, in my personal opinion, with the shareholder vote coming out. Now, short term, there is a head and shoulders like structure, but there's no sign of Tesla losing 173 to break down, and we're still range bound. When you zoom out, we actually have an inverse head and shoulders. This suggests upside is a strong possibility, so it could actually try to push much higher if this inverse head and shoulders ends up playing out. So whether we get a dip or not doesn't matter. We're going to likely see upside. For the QQQ, just like SPY, we're kind of turning on the 4 hour. This is actually looking weaker than SPY. So we're at 462. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually dip all the way down to about 460. So I anticipate that as a strong possibility. And I think that we'll have to be very patient with the way this ends up moving. So I'll be watching to see what happens on Monday. If we end up losing that support at 462, we'll be looking for a dip all the way down to 460. And if that fails us, we could dip a little bit more. So we'll be very patient nonetheless. For Aapl, Apple's looking very bullish ahead of the very important events coming up. This could actually continue to pump, and this could actually outperform the market and try to go up to about 198. I wouldn't be surprised if we go a little higher for Aapl, if anything. And then for a few more, I just wanted to call out Coinbase, looking kind of weak right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up, so we're testing this 240 area. We could actually come all the way down to 238, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. And then for Bitcoin, same thing. This is also dipping quite a bit. So we could even dip all the way down towards 68,500, and we'll have to see what happens after that. So that's what I'm seeing, at least so far, at least on the charts. And I want to make that very clear. Last but not least, we have AMC and GameStop. They're currently below some key levels. GameStop is below 28.7 right now. So I do see a risk of it coming down to fill its gap towards 23. GameStop was very manipulated with all the halts. Same thing with AMC. If we lose 4.88 on AMC, look for it to close this gap. I do favor that a bit more, but we'll just have to wait and see. But I do see potential for a little dip on those. All right, so next week is going to be a massive week. The first couple of days are going to be very minor, but then when we get to Wednesday, that's when all hell is going to break loose, depending on CPI and what Jerome Powell says. So get ready, guys. The market is looking a little bit more like it's going to dip a bit. It's going to be a small dip. It's not a crash, not a pullback, a little healthy dip before it tries to bounce. I find that to be the most likely possibility. All right, so I'm going to make this video very, very short, sweet, and simple. If you're interested in other tickers like Meta, Amazon, and others, I'll talk about those on Sunday. For now, I'm just going to focus on a few, and I'll be back with you guys very soon to break down news and what else the market does later on. I'll be posting another video tomorrow to keep you guys updated. So until then, I hope everyone takes care. I hope you guys have a very, very awesome rest of your Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I'll be back tomorrow for another update video, and also on Sunday. Sunday is going to be the day I go through everything as I typically do. But for now, I'll keep the videos shorter and more simple for today and tomorrow as we have the weekend, the first couple of days, and some fun coming up. All right. So thank you for listening. Have an absolutely incredible rest of the day, and I'll see you guys very soon. Enjoy the weekend, guys, and peace out.